Welcome to a tradition unlike any other, the Grip Strip Podcast. Hello, friends. My name is Phil Matthew. I'm your host, and I'm with my co-host, the iRacing Indy 500 champion, a gentleman and a scholar, and someone who has had plenty of fun with patrons. His name is Joshua Fine. How are you doing, brother?
Bill, I'm doing great. This awesome tradition that we have, the GSP here tonight. We've got basketball, we've got racing, we got all these things. A tradition. Hendrick Motorsports, Red Bull. It's all a great tradition here. So yeah, ready to get into it here on the GSP.
Thank you, Tony Romo. We'll definitely, if CBS needs subs for those two guys, I think we could definitely do a good job, and we'd be a lot cheaper. I know Josh doesn't need the money. I do, but I'm not going to ask for $20 million a year to suck at my job like Tony Romo does. Or Jim Nance doing however much money he gets paid for mailing it in on golf tournaments these days. But that's why they have Iron Eagle. Yeah, we'll talk about the Martinsville Hendrick benefit on Sunday, the Cookout 400, the 40th anniversary of the first ever win. You had Jeff Bodine there. You had Fat Mullet Jeff Gordon representing the team. And the short track package coming through once again with a god-awful race. There was really no passing of relevance during the whole entire day. William Byron gets his third win of 2024 basically on pit road under a green flag, which, I mean, if somebody told me 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, there would be a 180 lap run to end a race at Martinsville, I would have said you're out of your freaking mind. But that's what we get these days when you have a GT3 car with enormous brakes and stupid aero on the underneath of the car at a short track. We'll talk about all the key storylines from the race and the points. We'll get into the Xfinity series, which saw Eric Almirola get the victory there. I think, we were Xfinity series. Yeah, I thought that you had picked him I felt like you had picked him, but you picked Allgaier, which wasn't a bad pick. I picked Custer, wasn't a bad pick, but Eric Almirola gets the victory. And he got to go and thank Jesus and do all his other garbage. The person he really should thank is Sheldon Creed for that victory. But we'll get into that. And he wins $100K for the Dash for Cash in the process. So the 20 team gets some extra money. Then when it comes to the Truck Series race, that one was Christian Eckes' second win of the year. He's having a good start. I mean, the guy who is left wondering the most, thinking if he could have been a Truck Series champion last year, has come out early and had some good momentum. The McAnally team has had speed and proves it once again. It was him and Ty Majeski basically the whole night. Ty Majeski yet again deciding to go for points and he's points racing this the whole way. It's almost like Juan Pablo Montoya circa 2009 or whatever it was, whatever year it was. He's just points racing. He doesn't even give a crap about winning races. He's won championships that way, and God bless him. But at some point, it gets to a point where you have to be able to win. But in Ty Majeski's mind, I guess if you run up front long enough, you will win. So we'll review all three races for NASCAR, and they'll all three be in action this coming weekend at Goosageville. So we'll discuss that and preview those races. The Japanese Grand Prix was red flagged initially after a crash between Daniel Ricciardo and Alex Albon. After they restart the race, the usual crap happened. Same podium as couple I believe that's the same podium as Saudi. It was with Fish Lips and Sergio Perez and Carlos Sainz. In terms of who, if we picked that, we didn't pick. Neither of us picked Perez, but to finish on the podium. Josh was closer with the picks. So, proving once again, if you really want to make picks and you want to use the prognostications, you definitely go with the prognostications of Josh. There was not, I mean, obviously Mercedes continues to suck. McLaren didn't have a great weekend, but they were able to get through. Aston Martin doing whatever they're doing. So we'll talk about all the stuff that went on there. And the points heading to China. The roundup will be the Arizona Nationals. Anthony Wayne Stewart couldn't get a clean run until the semifinals the whole entire weekend, but he won 2 rounds by driving his way through it, which tells you that he's figuring out how to drive the car. Now they just have to give him a car to race with, which Neil Strasbaugh is capable of doing so, but it took a long time for him and Leah to do it a couple of years ago, and they missed the playoffs. If they give up too much time, it's going to become an issue with making the playoffs this year, even though they do have the rules with running, I don't know, every single qualifying session and something, and you get into the playoff. But we'll talk about all that went on at Firebird for Top Fuel, Funny Car, and Pro Stock. MotoGP and Moto2 will be at COTA for the Grand Prix of the Americas this weekend, after the purchase of MotoGP and World Superbike Dorna company by Liberty Media, so be a big storyline there. Formula E will be racing 2 races at Misano this weekend for the Italian E-Prix. And then a huge piece of news that came out today, the defending V8 Supercars champion Brody Kostecki for Erebus Motorsports. They lost all their sponsors in the off season, or a good amount of their sponsors in the off season, in the controversy that took place with Brody Kostecki and the ownership and at Erebus Motorsports. He goes and sits on the sidelines. People talk about him coming to NASCAR. Now, a few weeks after the season starts, he's missed, 6 rounds or something in the championship. Brody Kostecki is now returning to the Supercars Championship. He will be driving the number 1 car, which is good to see a champion racing with the number 1. This coming weekend for his season debut, and we'll see if he's given up too much time and if Erebus can actually put a fight up against Triple Eight and everyone else. I mean, basically, it's a Chevy benefit. So if they're gonna make it happen, they're gonna need somebody else that isn't at Triple Eight Racing, at Red Bull Racing, to make this championship interesting. We'll take a few minutes and talk about the Masters, of course. This week, 88th Masters, 2 Indian guys that are born here in America in the field after yesterday with Akshay Batia going and winning the Texas Open, dislocating his shoulder in the prior to winning the event, getting a tape job and having to go off the course in the middle of a playoff. Denny McCarthy going and chunking a what do you call a wedge into the water after he had birdied 8 out of 9 on the back and shot 63, which is absolutely just god awful way to end. But we'll talk about all the key players who could win. What will Eldrick do? Oh yeah, another hot MILF, Tracy Wolfson. There you go. That's a nice one. Yeah. Then we'll preview all 3 races, as I said, at Goosageville for NASCAR. At Texas, Josh will let us know all things going on in the world of iRacing and gaming in his sim segment, and then we'll call it a day. So yeah, let's start with the Boarfest that was the Cookout 400. There were 13 lead changes among 8 drivers. The vast majority of the race was led by the Hendrick Motorsports trio of William Byron, Kyle Larson, and William Clyde Elliott II. In the end, Byron, coming from 18th, ends up leading the most laps. Got a couple of points for the stages, but nothing. But not as much as Larson, who'd won stage 1, finished 3rd in stage 2. Hendrick gets their first ever 1-2-3 finish at a race at one of their best racetracks. Darrell Walsh Jr. finishes 4th after starting 2nd. Defending series champion Ryan Blaney finishes 5th. Joey Logano 6th. Tyler Reddick 7th. Alex Bowman 8th. So all 4 Hendrick cars in the top 8. Ryan Preece 9th after taking tires, and Chase Briscoe started 5th, was running up there for a good amount of the race. Had issues on pit road at one point and never really could get that track position back, finished 10th. Dennis Hamlin went on pit road late in the race trying to gamble, only came back up to 11th. That Jones boy, Todd Gilliland, and Ross Chastain rounded out all the lead lap cars. There's 14 lead lap cars at the end of what was 415 laps. Once they put the yellow or whatever, they had the yellow there. They ran, they had a caution, so 5 for 51 laps. They ran the last caution for 14 laps.
John Hunter was on fire.
Yeah, so that was a 14 lap yellow, but he had gotten off the racetrack. They take 11 laps to go and for stage breaks. And then they do 11 laps for a stage break. They did 5 laps for the other 2 cautions, and then they did 14 laps for that last yellow when John Hunter Nemechek blew a tire and caught on fire, which kind of sort of affected the race, but not really. Chase Elliott was up there. I think he was thinking he was going to win the race. Larson had led a bunch of laps, so he probably thought he had a chance too. Damn, she could get it. But Byron goes out there and gets his 3rd win of the year, off to another hot start. Will he be able to go and close the deal this year compared to what he did last year, where he disappeared essentially in the playoff until, I guess, Martinsville last year, and then he got in but still didn't win the championship. I mean, the greater story is not just the fact that it was Hendrick's 40th. They spent the whole entire weekend talking about it. All the cars look basically the same, and then they all ran up front at a track which has historically been, I mean, from the moment that Hendrick Motorsports began, basically, which was that day in 1984, stayed alive as an organization, as All-Star Racing, to now, nearly 40 years later. This has been one of their best racetracks, and yesterday they proved once again that was the case. Denny Hamlin had a chance. He was leading going into that last green flag round of pit stops, lost track position, lost time on pit road, and that basically cost him his opportunity. Joey Logano had gambled for 2 tires after one of the stages and led a good amount of the race after that in the second stage. So it tells you we never saw that in the old days of Martinsville and short track racing, where you could basically take 2 tires and hold everybody up. It's kind of something I wish that Briscoe would have done, because he's over the years figured out how to make a wide car while leading races. And I'm not saying you would have won, but it probably would have been a move to get a top 5 finish, which when you're on the cusp of the top 16, I think you need to be taking those kind of gambles when you don't have the actual speed to win races. But I mean, I was going in between that and the golf, because the golf was really compelling and the race wasn't. I was not trying to sit there and puke from all the damn ass kissing for Hendrick Motorsports. I get it. They've been around a long time. They've been very successful. Fat Felon wasn't there, though they brought Fat Mullet Jeff Gordon to go and represent everything. And of course, the car that now is the 24 car, with a guy who has a personality that's even more vanilla than even Jeff Gordon could ever imagine, in White Bread Byron. Goes out there, he's winning races, him and Rudy Fugle, one of the best combinations in the sport. Fugle taking that call to pit early and do the overcut, and by doing the overcut, he ended up winning the race, because is it the overcut or the undercut when they go and pit early?
That's the undercut when you pit early.
Yeah, so he did the undercut. My fault, so thank you for that. Does the undercut call with whatever 100 and something laps to go, or 80 laps to go, or whatever the fuck, and goes out there and wins the race, because the 24 team is one of the better teams on pit road as well. So, and somehow or another, Bubba Wallace's team, even though they did have one bad pit stop during the day, didn't F up the last one, so he was able to get a top 5 finish. But Denny Hamlin's team had a rare bad pit stop, and that's where it went. But I mean, fine, Hendrick won. It's not like it was out of the realm that they were going to go and win. I think everything was building towards that. You ended up, I mean, in terms of for the Cup Series, I don't know who picked. If you picked, yeah.
I picked Larson.
Yeah, you picked Larson to win, and Josh Berry, which was closer. I picked MTJ, and he was an absolute disaster yesterday. He tied for the worst finish I've had out of a driver I picked in my one pick'em pool that I still lead the points in. Him and Byron both finished 18th when I picked them, but Truex was outside of the top 20 for most of the day and a non-factor. So that went absolutely nowhere. Joey Logano ended up finishing top 10, which is not surprising. But yeah, Larson probably feels a bit aggrieved thinking he had a chance to win that deal. So does Elliott. But in the end, William Byron gets the win. And if there's probably one driver that I think this car is suited for, their driving style, I think it's this car and William Byron. And he's proven it these last couple of years since he's had Rudy Fugle back on the pit box.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with, I was talking about this race briefly at work today with a coworker, and he's like, oh, the Fords didn't really do that well this weekend, because I think he's a Penske Ford guy, and I was like, well, yeah, it was the Hendrick Love Fest there, so, yeah, of course, the whole weekend, about Hendrick's, 40th anniversary, so, I mean, obviously, they were going to be up front and dominate, and, they did, for a lot of that race, of course, Joey Logano on that pit strategy, 180 laps on 2 tires at Martinsville is insane, and that's shows you the type of product that we're dealing with Goodyear and with the next gen car and everything. So you had that, and then of course William Byron undercutting there goes and takes the win away, and I mean it looked like it was going to be he was going to check out and win the race, but then, a couple laps ago, John Hunter Nemechek, I guess, hits the wall and sets on fire, and then he pulls onto pit road, he's on fire, and that's why they went and ran all those laps under caution to get him, fixed and everything, so I guess for safety or whatever, but it did kind of draw it out a little bit, and then, briefly there, you kind of think back to something like, 2012, Clint Boyer going, here I am again all on my own, to Jeff Gordon and Jimmy Johnson there and taking them out and everything, but then nothing really came to fruition there, and of course William Byron goes out and wins the race, which interestingly enough, I kind of thought about it. I mean, we talked about the car number history before, but this is the 24 car with William Byron, but remember it was renumbered from the 5 after 2017, which after 2010 was originally the number 88, which was the 25 for many years before Dale Jr. showed up. So that's the Hendrick 25, in terms of lineage that ended up winning. So which I guess that one's also meaningful to Mr. Hendrick. With that's the Papa Joe car, the Tim Richmond Curse of the 25 car. So I guess that's the lineage of who ended up winning there, of course, but. I guess in the end, its most successful car number in terms of wins goes out and wins the race there for the number 24. And yeah, William Byron, not only is he really good right now, but he's also putting a lot of time in the sim, of course. And I think that's kind of the advantage that he has over some of his teammates. Larson, for as much dirt racing as he doesn't really spend that much time in the sim. Chase Elliott's not really a sim guy. Bowman, not as much as well. Of course, also kind of a dirt guy. So that's kind of the advantage that they have. They also, obviously, they put in a lot of work to Martinsville. So that's the other advantage that they have. But yeah, I mean, just a love affair all around. I mean, let's not even mention the fact that Penske was, I think their 600 or 6,000th start across all series in NASCAR, IndyCar, and sports cars and all the other series that they've participated in. So congrats to that team as well, of course. But yeah, and interesting that Mr. Hendrick couldn't even go to his own event because somehow he had knee replacement surgery, which I find interesting that this is on the calendar obviously probably for several months, and then all of a sudden we hear he has a knee replacement, which obviously maybe it had to happen now or something like that, but knee replacement was obviously a very important thing, especially with his age and everything. But it is interesting that all happened, and prevented him from going to his own event. But Jeff Gordon there to represent there for the ownership. So, I mean, yeah, it was a Hendrick Love fest all around. But I think the bigger question really is, this next gen car, the tire. Clearly, Bristol, what we saw at Bristol 3 weeks ago, happy accident. And, we saw Richmond minus the rain tire, and what we saw, yesterday at Martinsville. Clearly, there's a problem with the short track package that they can't address. They haven't figured out how to fix. So, obviously, it had tons of momentum here in NASCAR the last, couple of weeks, leading up into, Richmond and all that with the racing that we've had so far this season. Now, kind of the last couple of weeks, kind of been a little bit of a downer, with short track racing. And now we go to Texas, obviously our favorite track on this podcast. So, now we're going to have bad racing, of course. So that's going to a bit of stall, with the momentum that they had in ratings and viewership. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, just another boring short track race at Martinsville for the last 3 years or so. So clearly NASCAR got to go back to the drawing board. Goodyear got to go back to the drawing board to make short track racing a lot more entertaining here with the Cup car that we have right now.
Yeah, and they say that they don't want to add to spending and all this stuff, and they're trying to get a new OEM and all this other bullshit. But here's the reality: there's no OEMs coming into NASCAR. As it stands right now, there's nothing about any of these three. Only series that is compelling is Xfinity, and those are the closest things to what was a stock car as we have anymore. The trucks are basically Twisted Sister kit trucks now with a spec engine, and they're dog slow. They don't have any horsepower. The driving standards are atrocious. I mean, the driving standards in all the series is bad, but that's a separate discussion. The brakes are too big. The tires are too wide. They don't fall off. They're so hard that they could have lasted 200 laps at least. If the left sides went 180, I think, or they could have probably went 150 laps on a set of tires. At Martinsville, those tires, the days of when I first started watching, they had 2 pit roads. It wasn't 1 pit road, and they were pitting every time there was a yellow. They were pitting and putting tires on. And now, of course, it's become pseudo Xfinity-like because of limited sets of tires. But they don't have to worry about it when the tire's so damn hard that it's never going to fall off. They're more concerned about a blowout at high speed because Badger is the only one that seems to have that problem. But I also say, in terms of the idiots that run the sport, and SOD, Steve Phelps, Probst, all these other idiot sticks that don't know anything about motorsports and aren't engineers and all this other stuff. I'm like, there's nothing, no one's theoretically being hurt if you decide to go and run a test at North Wilkesboro with tires from whatever short track and run it with 1,000 horsepower. Like, literally, nobody's getting hurt by that. If you really want to go one better, take the worst driver from all of these big teams and let them do the test. Bowman is not amazing, but he's not a bad driver. Gagson has had flashes. You talk about big teams, so Penske, so Gumby, et cetera, et cetera. You know what I'm saying here. In terms of, and you could go and run a test, and I bet you go and take all the crap off the bottom of the car, and you give them 1,000 horsepower, you probably wouldn't have some of the aero wash issues. You wouldn't be able to follow closer. I think the notion of shifting also wouldn't be there, which I think is idiotic and asinine, and it's been asinine for years. I mean, it was one thing to see it at Phoenix because they ruined Phoenix, and the way that it is now, you kind of have to because they made the track wider for whatever reason. They did one of the worst reconfigures in the history of mankind. There, I mean, they make that reconfigure makes Texas seem like child's play, considering how many times. But then I'm go off on my Texas rant later. The point is this: short track package is terrible. The road course racing is terrible. You're taking basically what was something that was good with the Gen 6 era and throwing it in the toilet when you at one point were saying that you're trying to bring the racing back to the fans and bring it back to the roots. Now, road course racing isn't the roots of NASCAR unless you want to go and get a reach about moonshine running. The fact of the matter is these cars don't resemble anything that's stock. So that whole moonshine running thing is gone. They're closer to a V8 supercar and a GT3 car than they are a stock car. All right. You're better off going to the GT4 Challenge at Ryan Eversley's in or running something, whatever, Michelin Pilot Challenge cars. Now those are stock cars. That would be a better idea than what the hell they're running right now. I love the fact that NASCAR had a clean sheet of paper now, I think 3 times. And in those 3 times, they have failed miserably in different ways with making a car. They made a car that was just a plain Jane sticker mobile with the engines from every manufacturer, and it had aero. You had issues with aero then, and they would fluctuate with motor sizes and crap then. Then you had the Gen 6 car, which was more visual, the aesthetic fit what the actual car may have been. They ran all different types of horsepower packages and aero and all kinds of shit, and they had varying degrees of whatever. Jimmy Johnson, when they brought the Gen 6 out, won his 6th championship with it, 6th and 7th championships with it. The Gen 5 era was basically Jimmy Johnson from the jump. So the Gen 6 era, you saw a little bit more change, but in the end, it wasn't like amazing. And then they said, oh, we're going to bring this new car out and it's going to be innovative and all this. There's no real innovation with this car unless you're saying a 5-speed sequential gearbox is an innovation, which it isn't, since Indy cars have been using sequential gearboxes since the early 90s, and Formula One's been doing it since the late 80s. Having independent rear suspension and some of these others, there's nothing unique about these cars. They're a V8 supercar with some extra changes, basically, to it to be on ovals, because if you hit the wall in one of these things, you're going to give yourself bad head injury. And the notion that NASCAR couldn't even figure out that was a problem is a problem. So they don't know what they're doing. They don't know what they want. You've got, I don't know how many different voices in NASCAR telling you to make these changes, and you won't. So either this is the WWE with race cars, or you are just completely completely out to lunch and absolute idiot sticks, because you're just ignoring the elephant in the room. The notion that you're going to tell me that Doug Yates, TRD, and then insert Chevy person here, whether it's Hendrick engines, whether it's ECR, can't run 1,000 horsepower is BS to me. You could go and call them people that make them pro stock engines, and they can go and start working on NASCAR motors. and they could go and get you 1,000 horsepower right away. It's not that hard. And if Denny Hamlin, who owns a freaking team, is telling you you could get 1,000 horsepower, you're not going to spend much of anything, then why don't you listen to him? Oh, wait, that's right, because there's a fight between the owners and NASCAR for rights money. I'm like, okay, so you want to get an OEM, like how IndyCar wanted another OEM for God knows a decade plus, and they haven't found one. And NASCAR's wanted an OEM since Dodge left in 2012 because they had nobody to run with. And then but you don't make a product that makes sense to go and have a new manufacturer come in. If you're going to say that you're going to go to V6 engines, if you're going to go to stock V6 engines with a BOP, that's how you might get somebody. If you have hybrid technology, that's how you get somebody. If you're gonna, that's the only ways you're gonna get someone into the Cup Series, and that ain't happening for a few years. So this whole fallacy of we need to keep at this horsepower is what it is. It's a fallacy, and you could be a NASCAR talking head all you want. Matt Weaver wrote a great piece on his site that he works for about what's wrong with this package and what needs to be done. And frankly, he's right and we're right. And everybody that isn't somebody who's paid by Daytona is right. That's what it is. And for whatever reason, NASCAR is willing to go and put a bad product out on the racetrack intentionally, as though, and it's almost like a thing where they want to kill racing at short track. So then, one, you lose short track races. Two, more races get taken away from this part of the country where you talk about the Southeast, the Northeast. They're just trying to basically eradicate that. You're trying to become a sport which just goes to big cities. This isn't a sport that goes our way. Formula One sort of is. Formula E goes in towns. That's what it's for. NASCAR is out in the middle of bumblefuck. That's what it has been. It's worked. You stay with that. You don't go and decide that we're going to race in. Fine. Chicago is a novel concept. After they do this, after this year or next year, they ain't going to be there no more. They could try to pull the stunt in LA. It ain't going to happen. It's definitely not happening in New York City. You can go and call it a day there. You might race in Weehawken, but they ain't going to race in New York City. But this car has been fundamentally flawed from the jump. They refuse to acknowledge the faults of the car from the jump, and it forced Kurt Busch into retirement. It injured other guys. It's not a good race car outside of the occasional race at a 1.5 mile racetrack. They're like, oh, it's good on intermediate tracks. I'm like, outside of Kansas, can you tell me any intermediate track where they've actually really put on good racing? Honestly, okay, there you go. All right, Charlotte, which, even when you think about last year in the Coca-Cola 600, Ryan Blaney dominated that race, and he really didn't have any resistance. But behind him, there was some good racing. I guess it's the same way you could talk about Vegas, where Kyle Larson from the jump ran away with the race, but there was racing behind him. So it's like, well, if you hit this setup, you're going to get away and nobody's going to be able to touch you, which is racing, and then you have good racing behind it. All right, fine. I guess making Charlotte raceable for the first time in 20-something years, after levigation and all the other crap that they did to that racetrack, I guess is a win. And in Kansas, because to justify having 2 races there, but I mean, they took Atlanta, decided to make it into a super speedway. So, I mean, it tells you where we're at now as a series when you're coming up with gimmicks to make the product better. This isn't sustainable, because there aren't tons of people with money coming into NASCAR to invest in it. Taurus, the guy with a Group 1001 Gainbridge and all that, he's already in the sport with Spire. And those guys, which is TJ Pusher or whatever, and Dickerson and all that, they're just waiting for the check from somebody big, and like that Taurus and Michael Andretti, and they're bailing. They're out the door. You know, you could see how great they're doing this year when they decided to expand to 3 teams. They weren't a great team as a 2-car team as it is, and then they decided to add another car, and they're god-awful. And then you have people like Carson Hocevar triggering multi-car wrecks at the end of races that they don't bother to replay on the telecast because they're too shitty to do it because it's Fox. But, well, it's Fox. When we did the CBS broadcast, and at least there's a semblance of like a quality control there at CBS, there's no quality control at Fox for any entity, I think, outside of their like actual TV shows. They ruin any sport they cover. The only redeeming quality that Fox has on their broadcast, it's like Mike Joy, I guess, is starting to get his brains back. I guess he's taking Prevagen or something. Whatever he's doing was working. He's pulling he did the whole Buddy Arrington story there. That was, or Joey Arrington story. That was pretty cool. And Kevin Harvick. If you take those 2 guys away, the Fox telecasts are an abomination no matter which series they cover. The thought that they might possibly get IndyCar makes me want to vomit. We'll see what happens with that. But yeah, they don't respect, there's like nowhere in this thing where they respect fans or they respect the people that are a part of the sport that make the sport happen. It's just really, really dumb. And it's getting old. And the notion is, oh, you're running the fans off, you've ran fans off. I'm like, yeah, you're taking people like us who have been fans for most of our lives, and you're making us question why we bother to put in the effort of watching this every single week. And like, I've had the same conversation about Formula One. I'm like, I don't have a reason to watch it. I watched the replay and rewound, fast forward, whatever, because it was on DVR, and that's how I watch Formula One. I'll watch highlights. I mean, there aren't really highlights in Formula One, but, you know, like, I don't have a reason to sit there and watch a race. NASCAR is getting to that point. And that's disappointing. And it's unfortunate, but it's when you lack real leadership and you lack a real direction, this is where you end up at. So,
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you there, and you know, it's I mean, a lot of it is because like the car is the same. There's very little difference between, you know, the cars. Yeah, they have all the data now from SMT or whatever they call it, where they can figure out what the drivers are doing. Everybody can see it. So, and you know, Danny made a great point about that on his show today, of course. But yeah, I mean, it would be interesting, like if they just like told the teams to go test for like, let's go do a test here for a day at like Richmond or, you know, one of the short tracks, Martinsville or North Wilkesboro or whatever, and just went and, you know, did a test, like take the car, do whatever you want with it, and figure out what works, and we'll try that out and figure it out. Like just open up every variable in the book and see what they can do. I don't know why they can't do that, and they have that testing ban or whatever it is, and so nobody can go out and open test during the day or anything like that anymore. The only real testing that happens outside of the 20-minute practice sessions is the Goodyear tire tests that they do, which we have to question whether they even test at all there either. But you have that, and then the other thought that I had was, what if Penske, he ran V8 supercars. Well, what if he just decided to just say, hold my beer and let me go get one of the V8 supercars that he ran with Dick Johnson Racing in Australia or whatever, and just sneak one here to America and just like take it to a short track, take two to a short track and then just run them as is, and everything, and see how that works. So that's what I would think, just from trying to figure things out. And NASCAR really puts in a half-ass effort to figure out how to make it work for short tracks, and have like minuscule tire changes and minuscule aero package changes and all that stuff. And it's very in the shifting as well, and it's very clear that this car doesn't work on basically every other track besides the 1.5 mile tracks. And we said it before that the Gen 6, the problem with the COT, the Gen 6, the late era of the Gen 4, where the Twisted Sister era, like problem was aero push on the bigger tracks, and this car still has that issue to a degree, but they fixed, or at least they were able to mitigate some of it. But then when you take it to other tracks, it doesn't work. So they basically just inverted the problem that they were having for many years on other tracks and just put it on to short tracks and road courses and all that stuff. So yeah, why can't we just take a day and just open the book and figure it out or whatever? Denny had on his show had the idea of just take the original or next gen car and just have Dale Jr. pick the tire for the day and see how that would work at North Wilkesboro or Richmond or Martinsville or something like that. So yeah, that's what they need to do. They just need to take a day and figure it out, because clearly what they have right now just isn't working at all.
Yeah, it's very true. And Junior is one of the only ones that cares about the health of the sport, and he's one of the only people that probably is interested in possibly moving up into the Cup Series at this point. And it's like, you're going to go and provide this product. The notion is the cost of a charter isn't going down, but what you're putting out on the racetrack is not going up. And then, I would go and take it one step further. I would go and say, go to they have short tracks, like some of these short tracks where they run the Cars Tour. Go and run go and run the Gen 7s there. And have, if you're going to say Junior, go and run the tire, let Junior do it. You could take a retired driver. You could have Matt Kenseth. You can have, albeit he does work for Legacy, but you can have him. You can have Junior. You can have Smoke. Whoever, I don't know. Pick a bunch of retired guys and let them run them, and they run through the data and let them go and say what's going on, and then go and have 4 rookie drivers drive them, for same amount of time, kind of which would be like Josh Berry, Zane Smith, and then, I don't know, for whoever you guess, put Corey Heim in there and maybe pick a couple other people there as you go along, like young guns. and let them go and run. And then you go and run the veterans, the champions. So you'd have Larson and Clyde, and then you'd have Logano and Blaney, and then you have Truex. And I know Denny Hamlin has won a title, but Denny Hamlin's won 60, 50 something races. So, and he owns a team. So, he probably belongs. And what they could figure out a lot of things if you just allowed them, you gave them like a 2-day test at any number of these racetracks. I bet you could figure out a way to make a car race on a short track. You could figure out a way to make the car race on a road course, and even make it super speedway racing palatable. That might be a novel concept, but they don't want to do it. They say they can't. There's cost saving, but who's saving anything by doing a 20-minute practice? Brad Keselowski's already come out and said that they don't save anything by running 20 minutes. They could run an hour practice session if they really wanted to. And fundamentally, this sport would be better off if they would just go and run a 15-minute warm-up or something. If they would run a 15-minute warm-up before Daytona 500 qualifying, you could mitigate certain problems that happen there. And, et cetera, but typical NASCAR. The points heading to Texas, Larson leads by 14 points over Truex, who had a terrible day. 17 on Hamlin, minus 17's Hamlin. Then there's a huge gap. William Byron has 3 wins and 15 playoff points, but he's 31 points behind Denny Hamlin and 48 points behind Kyle Larson. Blaney's 48 points back. Chase Elliott 51. Ty Gibbs 55. And that's the top 7 there. Chastain, Reddick, Bowman minus 82 in 10th. Christopher Bell, Darrell Walsh Jr., Christopher Buescher. Joey Logano has now moved up to 14th in points. So there you go. Like I said last week, that was going to be the last time I was probably going to be able to use Joey Logano this year as a wild card, and I was right. Kyle Busch is going the other way. Chase Briscoe gained two positions in points. 16th overall, but actually outside of the playoff by 1 point at the moment because of Daniel Suarez being in as a winner so far this year, and so he usurps Chase Briscoe that way. So Briscoe is a point behind Kyle Busch for the last spot. Then you got Brad Keselowski, John Hunter Nemechek, and Eric Jones. The next few drivers that are there. And we'll see what happens at Texas. Let's get to the Xfinity Series. Dude wipes 250 at Martinsville. It was dominated by Eric Almirola. It's one of his best racetracks, so it's not really shocking. Won stage 1, finished second in stage 2. Justin Allgaier won stage 2. It was Almirola over Sam Mayer, Chandler Smith. Carson Kvapil gets a top 5 finish in his Xfinity debut. And Justin Allgaier finishes 5th. Sheldon Creed 6th. Sammy Smith, Cole Custer, Jesse Love, and Josh Williams gets a top 10. Shane Van Gisbergen finishes 11th there. There was 24 cars on the lead lap, so pretty weird for a Martinsville race, but I guess there was a lot of yellows there, 11 for 68 laps. There was a wreck there on lap 245. that took out 5 cars. And then there was one wreck that involved I forget which wreck it was, where the 43 of Ryan Ellis was involved in that one because his car was destroyed. I mean, there was a big wreck they didn't bother to show at the end of the race. This was a stage 1. I'm trying to find Ryan Ellis's car. Yeah, so he was a lap down, and they said accident. So it was the last lap accident, and they don't show who was involved in it. But yeah, so I mean, you had Almirola dominate. It's a track that he's been very, very good at in a Cup car over the years, so it's not really that surprising he gets in a Gibbs car and is able to go out and get the victory there. I mean, considerable help from Creed after Almirola grabbed the lead when Riley Herbst, Brandon Jones, and Ryan Ellis wrecked in turn 2 on the final lap. And won the hand. His first since retiring. And record book would show that JGR has 5 Xfinity, but Almirola is, so for 7, yeah, it's true. So there you go. And Dylan commanded pretty soon. And took Almirola 3 wide turn 2 contacts. So there, yeah. Yeah, so that's interesting. And they're going to get back to him. So interesting. There's they're running each other over. So Dash for Cash. So since he's not competing, so Mayer, Smith, Allgaier, and Sheldon Creed. All right. So yeah. So I mean, Eric Almirola fights back, is able to go and get that victory. They mentioned his victory that he had years ago that essentially he didn't get credit for at the Milwaukee when he started the car, but then Denny Hamlin jumped into it and won the race. So Almirola gets it, but I mean, other than the argy-bargy that took place amongst the Joe Gibbs Racing drivers, I mean, you had the Junior Motorsports cars up there, 3 Junior Motorsports cars in the top 5, and then you took a look at the top, and then 4 in the top 7. You had 3 Gibbs cars in the top 6. So domination by those 2 teams. Custer continues to just pile the points up. He may have had a chance to win, but kind of lost track position. Jesse Love continues to quietly go about his business in his rookie season, compared to what he did last year in an ARCA car. A lot of controversy and then winning races. This year, he's just kind of going about his business. And that Whelen Engineering number 2 car is probably on the cusp of winning at some point soon. So, Almirola gets the win, gets the 100K. Sam Air these last few weeks has started to take the step forward back up the ladder after a brutal start to the year. But really, is it all that shocking that Eric Almirola won at Martinsville? I don't think so.
Yeah, not really shocking that he won. I mean, he almost won last fall in the Cup Series there, but came up short there, but on strategy. But this one, clearly dominated. And I think this is his first real oval win I guess for Joe Gibbs. Go back in the day when he started out, he won the race for Denny Hamlin, but Denny got credit for it, of course, and all that. So I think this, for his career, this is his first real oval win for at least for Joe Gibbs. I think he's won on oval a couple of times, but in Cup, but certainly in Xfinity. Of course, he's had some ones where he was beneficial of it, but yeah, good win for him here. Sam Mayer, just finally been able to put together last couple of races, been able to put together good results. So he's starting to get it together after really a poor start to the year for him. Chandler Smith, comes from all the way in the back to get up to third and win. So good result for him for effectively the best driver right now in terms of points in Xfinity. But how about Carson Kvapil in the star car for Junior Motorsports in the 88? First career start in Xfinity, and goes out and makes the most of it with a fourth place finish there for him. So very young talent, very talented. Him in the Cars Tour, won many races there for Junior Motorsports so far in his young career. Now top 5 at Martinsville. So look for him to get more opportunities later on, whether it's for Junior Motorsports or other teams. But definitely good start for his first career Xfinity race. So good talent there. Going to go back down to the outside of the top 10. Shane Van Gisbergen with 11th place run. I think him and Josh Williams had a little bit of argy-bargy there. So good battle there. I think saw a picture of him and Josh after the race kind of talking it out. So they had a little bit of run-ins, but it looked like they had fun out there. Of course, Sammy Smith ran well, led a ton of laps from 17th. So good for him. There was another argy-bargy, of course, early on in the race. I think that put the race under red flag with Allmendinger, Corey Heim, Austin Hill, kind of a stack up off a restart on lap 70 for the stage caution, or end of stage 1, beginning of stage 2. So that was big wreck there. But you go back to what we were talking about with the Cup Series, lack of yellows. I mean, this race definitely had a ton of yellows, which this is what short track racing supposed to have. Lots of cautions, lots of incidents. So that's kind of the difference there. So kind of strikes what the contrast is. But Almirola goes out and wins, but I think for the rest of the guys, the regulars, Chandler Smith still keeps the points lead and continues to open it up. Finished way better than Cole Custer. Austin Hill involved in that early wreck on lap 70, so that kind of puts him down a little bit in the points. So kind of getting interesting here. Chandler Smith starting to kind of separate himself from the rest of the field.
Yeah, I mean, Chandler Smith has been really consistent to start the year, so taking advantage of that, has the most playoff points for a regular. Well, obviously, you have to be a regular to get playoff points, so that's a good one, Phil. He has the most playoff points. He's tied for the most stage wins. You have... Eric Almirola, it's interesting. He's only run 4 out of the 7 races, and he's 11th in points. That's pretty. That tells you what kind of where the competition is at this year. He's only 22 points behind Sheldon Creed, and Creed's run every race, so you gotta wonder with some of these guys. But yeah, Chandler Smith 35 points out of Cole Custer, 41 points out of Austin Hill. Jesse Love is 4th. Justin Allgaier is 3 points behind Jesse Love. Best rookie right now. Riley Herbst is in 6th. The combination, that's a group there from him to Sheldon Creed is 24 points separating Herbst, Kligerman, Allmendinger, Sammy Smith, and then Creed. Alfredo and SVG round out the top 12. Buckshot Jones is 2 points out. Sieg 3 out. Sam Mayer is 17 points behind SVG for that cutoff. So, Sam Mayer, he's starting to run better. I think the win will come, so it won't really matter. But for now, he had such a bad start to the year. He's given up a lot of time, and he will need to win a few races to get himself in the mix for, those. And he's going to need them playoff points because he ain't going to win the regular season title. He's too far behind. 163 points behind Chandler Smith, so it's going to be very hard for him to catch that up. Truck Series, I mentioned them, the Long John Silver 200 at Martinsville on Friday night. He zoned out and fell asleep during this race. That's how compelling it was. It was basically Christian Eckes and Ty Majeski dominated the race. They led all but one lap. Eckes got a clean sweep, won both stages, won the race, took maximum points. So, he had a great night. You say 7th victory of his career. Eckes over Majeski, they started on the front row. Chase Purdy 3rd, Nick Sanchez 4th, Tyler Ankrum 5th. So 4 Chevys in the top 5, and two from Spire and 2 from McAnally. And Taylor Gray, Raja Caruth, Sammy Smith, Caden Honeycutt, and Corey Heim rounding out the top 10. There were 27 of the 34 trucks that started on the lead lap. Stephen Malazzi was the first truck a lap down. Cam Waters, the V8 Supercars driver, the Monster Energy Ford driver, made his Truck Series debut and was not running terrible, and then knocked the radiator out of it. Ended up with the 30th place finish. There was an issue where Dean Thompson got caught out, cut a tire down. I think it was with the 9, and ended up hitting the fence. That was what happened, I think, with that. I'm trying to look for that because I don't see that incident up here. Or you have 5,999. Okay, there you go. 1 lap, 147. So yeah, that was. The truck race was pretty straightforward. There wasn't a whole lot of activity. Majeski qualified well, but Eckes just had a better truck, and it's kind of par for the course the way things have been so far this year. They don't have, doesn't look like they have the points up. No, they do not have the truck points up, so we'll have to go to NASCAR.com for that, see if they have it there. Martinsville results. Truck Series. Now to watch now. News. That's trucks. Our standings for trucks. Yeah, there you go. So right now, I'm just gonna go through this. I don't know. Do you have anything, Josh, on this race? Eckes going out there getting that victory.
No, I didn't really see the race either, so I can't really say anything, but I mean, I'll say, I mean, last couple of seasons, he's really come into his own as a driver, I guess, because I think, early in his career, he was not really producing results, and he had the ride at KBM for a bit, but didn't produce there and got let go, and then went part-time for a year, and, kind of beginning to figure it out here, I guess. So, maybe he might move up to Xfinity here in a year or two and get a good ride there. So, starting to see somebody that I guess was not as good, maybe a few years ago when during 2020 and that time frame, but now starting to be one of the better stars here in the Truck Series.
Yeah, I mean, he's been a talent. He was at Venturini and won that ARCA championship a few years back. New York State guy, I think. New York, yeah, it's from New York State, and somebody that, I mean, Kyle Busch Motorsports, the longer we get away, I mean, yeah, there were some drivers that definitely thrived there, but then you can look at like a Christian Eckes, you can look at Todd Gilliland, guys who struggled at KBM but have gone on elsewhere and have been able to be successful. So, something to be said about quitting on people, even if when they have talent. Right now, Ty Majeski leads the points by 7 over Corey Heim and Tyler Ankrum, 11 over Christian Eckes. So that's the battle for the regular season title. Christian Eckes has led over 300 laps, and so far this year, a good amount of them was on Friday night. Heim has 6 top 10 finishes in 6 starts. Eckes has 5, along with Taylor Gray and Raja Caruth. Majeski and Ankrum have 4. And then they're part of Corey Heim has the most top 5 finishes as well. Eckes has the 2 wins. Heim, Sanchez and Caruth are the other guys that have won races that are regulars. So, that's 5 out of the 6. Kyle Busch is the only other one to win a race. So you got 4 drivers that are definitely locked in. Majeski's going to make it. Ankrum's going to make it. So I would say that's 6 drivers right now that are guaranteed to make the playoff. I would say after Raja Caruth and up, all of them are going to make the playoff in some way, shape, or form. So then the real battle, Crafton is in his own world, really. Enfinger is in 9th, 6 points ahead of Ben Rhodes, and then 12 points ahead of Tanner Gray. Then you have a little bit of a separation after that to Tanner Gray. Then you have Garcia, Dye, Curry, Friesen, Purdy, Holmes. Though it's separated by 9 points, those drivers. So that's interesting group there. They're trying to flirt with possibly getting into they'd need to win, or they'd have to pick up a lot of ground there. All right, Formula One, Japanese Grand Prix. There wasn't a whole heck of a lot that took place at Suzuka, to be fair, that was any different than what there's been so far this year. I mean, it's typical. Once they had that restart, Fishlips got another start, and he was able to get away. Won by 12.5 seconds as UConn runs in halftime with a 6-point lead over Purdue. There, so yeah, Fishlips by 12.5 seconds over Checo Perez, just under 21 seconds over Carlos Sainz. Leclerc was 4th, Lando Norris 5th, Alonso 6th, Russell, Piastri, Lewis Hamilton, Yuki Tsunoda at home, rounding out the top 10. First car 1 lap down. Lewis Hamilton ended up being 48.6 seconds behind in 9th. 3 cars didn't finish the race. Albon, Ricciardo were involved in that first lap incident, and then Zhou fell out at lap 12. Otherwise, everybody else was a lap down there. Yeah, I mean, in the end, Max Verstappen gets the pole, gets the fastest lap. I think he led the whole race, so he got the Grand Slam. But it's basically most races he does that. The battle for the Ferrari drivers, Carlos Sainz continues to win that one. Lando has taken the early lead in the battle between himself and Oscar Piastri this year. Fred Alonso is able to kind of insert himself in that mix with the other Mercedes customer and McLaren, and then the Mercedes factory team. I mean, that's the one thing that's keeping Aston Martin afloat, because Lance Stroll sucks so bad. And so, but it's no different than what was going on last year. Woody going out there, it was a close battle. I mean, it was like, 4.4 seconds covering 6th through 9th. So it's a hard racetrack to pass on, even when the cars were narrow. Now you consider how wide they are. It'd be virtually impossible to pass. So, yeah, Josh, I mean, before we get into the points, we figure that's what Verstappen's going to do, but can we take anything from what Checo did this weekend, especially in qualifying on one lap pace, being able to actually be within reason, in holding his end of the bargain up, even though he's not winning, or he's not probably going to win a lot, if any time. He's holding up his end of the bargain to try to maintain his ride at Red Bull, while his competition is essentially Yuki Tsunoda, since he's taking that not minority and finishing at the back end of the top 10, getting a point here and there, when you have such a competitive front half of the field, or the front half of the field is so far ahead of the back half of the field. To go and get a point means a lot there.
And it's certainly a possibility with Perez. I mean, I feel like with him, we always see him have a good race, or a good finish, like at Suzuka, finish on the podium, or potentially even a win. But then he'll follow it up with either a bad finish, or one where they struggled and they didn't really gain anything from it. Like getting still in the points, but certainly not a podium type finish, and where there's clearly a gap between him and Max Verstappen. But here he definitely maximized his points relative to Max. So at least right now we could believe it, but I feel like we're gonna have to see the next couple of races if he can follow it up and actually play his role as kind of the second car to Verstappen there. But I think he's definitely gonna have competition from Tsunoda, of course. Tsunoda is proving himself here in this RB car, which obviously doing a lot better job than Ricciardo is right now, who's probably at the the doors just about closed on his F1 career, should he have another result like he did at the next race. So it's definitely going to be interesting to watch this play out over the rest of the season. Tsunoda really dominant in F2, of course, but hasn't been. There have been flashes here and there of him getting points here and there, and of course, points in your home race, of course, very good to have. But going forward, he's going to really have to push to get Perez. So it's certainly possible, but he's going to have to produce a lot for that, I think, to happen. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But yeah, I mean, other than playing second fiddle to Max Verstappen, I mean, I don't know what else you can do.
Yeah, and I mean, going and taking from within, I mean, Ricardo, his days are numbered, driving the not minority, and then you have Tsunoda beating him handily, but is it really going to matter in the greater scheme of things when you have Verstappen flirting with maybe leaving, or maybe just decides he's going to stick around, he's going to get Karen Horner run out the door or whatever. That's where the real drama is off the racetrack, not on the racetrack, because there hasn't been much drama since Abu Dhabi in 2021. Abu Dhabi in 2021. So Fisher-Lips up by 13 points over Perez. The driver's standings, Leclerc is up by 4 points on Carlos Sainz for third. Norris leads Piastri by 5. Russell and Alonso are tied with 24 points in 7th and 8th. Lewis Hamilton is in 9th with 10 points, 1 point ahead of Stroll, 3 ahead of Tsunoda, 4 ahead of Ollie Bierman, and then you have Hulkenberg, Kevin Magnussen rounding out the point scorers so far. Both Williams drivers haven't scored. Both Sauber kick save and a beauty Saubers. Both Alpines haven't scored, and then you got Ricardo as well. The Constructors' Championship, Red Bull leads by 21 over Ferrari. Ferrari's 51 points out of McLaren, who is 35 points out of Mercedes, who are only 1 point ahead of Aston Martin. And then there's a huge drop-off between those two teams, and then not minority and Haas. Alpine is bringing up the rear in terms of the constructors because they have the best finish amongst the 3 teams that have no points so far, which is Williams, kick save, Sauber, and Alpine. Okay, so got through all that, did all that. So we will move to the roundup here. The Arizona Nationals and at Firebird Raceway, which will be that was last week, and then they'll be going to Vegas for 4 wide this coming weekend, so interesting with that. Hendrick Motorsports, you talk about Hendrick. They had the Hendrick car lead the most laps, or second most laps. The Hendrick cars, pro stock car with Greg Anderson, gets the win over his teammate Dallas Glenn. Better reaction time by 100th, and ended up winning with the 6:58 with a 208.97 miles an hour over Dallas Glenn's 6:61 with an 8:208.91. The ladders there, we'll go back in Anderson came from the number 4 spot, beat his partner in ownership of the team, Eric Latino, in KB Titan Racing. Beat him, beat Troy Coughlin Jr., longtime rival with Greg Anderson. Not Troy Coughlin Jr., Jed Coughlin Jr. There you go. That's the guy who's been a rival, and Troy Coughlin is another one of 2 cars from the to Greg. So Anderson beat those 2 guys from Elite, and then beat 2 guys from his own team. Dallas Glenn from the number 3 spot beat Mason McGahey, Christian Quadro, Red Lit, Aaron Stanfield, Stanfield got him on the tree by nearly 3. Was it 3? And under nearly 30,000, like 300ths of a second. But Dallas Glenn ran one of the low ETs of the whole entire weekend there. Enders ended up losing to her teammate Stanfield in the second round. In Funny Car, Austin Prock gets his first career Funny Car victory and joins the elite list of drivers who have won in both Top Fuel and Funny Car. Prock, driving with his dad and brother, tuning the car, got another number 1 qualifying spot, beat Buddy Hull, Daniel Wilkerson, J.R. Todd on his way to the final and beating Alexis DeJoria. John Force, who had earlier in the weekend won the Winter Nationals for win number 156, ended up losing in the second round to J.R. Todd. Matt Hagan was a first-round exit at Phoenix, so he lost to Daniel Wilkerson there. DeJoria came from the 15 spot, beat Bob Tasca in the first round, Bobby Bodie in the second. There was issues for both of those drivers with traction. Then DeJoria beats Blake Alexander, had the same kind of issue. And then when she actually had to run it, she was nearly a full 10th of a second slower. And way slower on the starting line too. So Austin Prock won with a 395 with a 320.74 miles an hour. So that was Funny Car. Mentioned Pro Stock. And Top Fuel, Sean Langdon with Brian Houston as his tuner have won their second race of the early season here in Top Fuel in the NHRA. Sean Langdon trying to get an elusive second title in the Top Fuel category. Try to find Langdon started from the number 5 spot, beats Josh Hart in the first round, then Antron Brown, Steve Torrance on a whole shot, and then beats Justin Ashley in the final 376 with 318.69. Ashley beats Tony Schumacher, Doug Coletta, the defending series champion, Tony Stewart, as I mentioned, got his first clean run of the weekend, but it was at the expense of Justin Ashley there, going and beating him with a quicker run. So the point standings heading into the 4 wide at Las Vegas, Sean Langdon up 18 over Billy Torrance, 31 over Justin Ashley, 35 over Steve Torrance. Right now, Tony Stewart is 6 points out of the top 10, which is occupied the 10th spot by Clay Millican, 20 points out of 9th. So something to look at early on. In Funny Car, J.R. Todd has 29-point lead, 47-point lead over Ron Capps, 48 over Austin Prock, and 49 over the Ageless Wonder John Force. Then in Pro Stock, Enders has a 49-point lead over Dallas Glenn and 76 over Greg Anderson. And then there's huge gaps after that. The battle for the 10 spot is going to be interesting. And they'll be racing 4 wides this weekend at Las Vegas, which has got to be sensory overload if you're able to go for that. MotoGP and Moto2. Going to Moto2. Canatra there. Moto2 standings. MotoGP, Moto2. As I mentioned, the last race at the Algarve, Joe Roberts finished second there. The American racing team got both bikes in the top 10. So that was that. Trying to get the standings itself. The standings after Portugal saw Aaron Canet lead the points by 2 over Joe Roberts, and 4 over Gonzalez, 5 over Garcia, and 6 over Lopez. Mogura, Baltus, Ramirez, Celestino, Vietti, and Arenas. Vietti and Arenas tied for 9th. In the MotoGP category, Jorge Martin, coming off a victory, leads by 18 over Brad Binder, 21 over Enea Bassaini, and 23 over Pecco Bagnaia, and Pedro Acosta rounding out the top 5 after his first podium. Mark Marquez, Alex Espargaro, Maverick Vinales, Jack Miller, and Fabio Di Gianantonio round out the top 10. Mentioned the stuff with the Liberty Media going and buying MotoGP, but it's really the overall product that they're buying. They're not just buying a series. So see how that all works out. In Formula E, they're racing at Formula E Next Gen Support Series. Formula E, we got Misano E-Prix, so I wonder if they're going to run the full circuit or how they're going to go and do that. But Misano, where that was where I think Wayne Rainey had his severe injury, but they're in cars, not on a 2-stroke light switch of a motorcycle. Pascal Wehrlein leads with 63 over Nick Cassidy by 2, 9 points over Oliver Rowland, 10 points over defending champion Jake Dennis, and 15 over Maxi Gunther, who won the feature race last time out at Japan. Mitch Evans, John-Eric Verne, Sam Bird, Robin Fry, and Sebastian Buemi tied with DaCosta there for 10th. That's, standings in Formula E. That's all we really need there. Brody Kostecki returning to Erebus, and then losing Boost Mobile founder Peter Adderton was dropped by Brody Kostecki so that I guess he could get around some of the obstacles that existed for Brody to enter not only major events, but or not major, like going and making his return to the Supercar Series after a few events away. Is he still in contention for a championship? I think it's early enough where he'll be able to, but it's going to be hard to beat those two Red Bull Chevys. And then the funding issue aside, trying to compete after being rusty and taking time away is going to ask a lot for sure. But guess we'll see what comes of that whole deal this coming weekend. We will talk about the Masters tournament this coming weekend. You got the course, tee time. They haven't come up with the tee times yet. In terms of, they got, so, I mean, obviously the major favorite would be Scotty Scheffler for as good as he's played last couple of years. Former winner of this event. He's doing so many things right that it's hard to imagine that he wouldn't be in contention on Sunday. In terms of other guys to look at, got to look at some of these other guys. You got Brian Harmon, the champion golfer of the year. Victor Hovland, who won the FedEx Cup. Max Homa is a big-time player recent years. DJ's coming from Liv. Zach Johnson, the former Masters champion. Tom Kim, Siwoo Kim. Bruce Koepka, who led a lot of the tournament last year. Trying to go through. It shows Denny McCarthy is in. Didn't know that he was in. They were making it sound like he wasn't in the event. Rory McIlroy going for the elusive green jacket to become a Grand Slam champion. Three-time Masters champion Phil Mickelson. You got Colin Morikawa, who's won 2 majors, trying to add a third different major. Joaquin Niemann, who's someone who a lot of people are talking about here this week for his chances. He's been playing well on the Live, and he's also been playing outside events. Got defending Masters champion John Rahm. Xander Schauffele, another one you'd probably think about as a opportunity there. Former Masters champion Adam Scott, former Open champion Cameron Smith, Jordan Spieth, winner of 3 of the 4 majors. He's just missing the PGA Championship that will take place next month. Sith Tagala there, Justin Thomas, who recently split from Bones Mackay, and Bones went right back to doing TV. You got Camilo Villegas, two-time Masters champion Bubba Watson, Mike Weir, former Masters champion Danny Willett, Woodland, Eldrick. You had and Wilson Outdoors, Cameron Young. So those are the players that stood out to me early on. I mean, honestly, it's hard to go against Scotty Scheffler in this spot, but a lot of people are looking at the live guys, and I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if someone from live goes and gets this win, but Scheffler's definitely the favorite. Since the rough and some of the areas aren't as penal as others, I think drivers of the golf ball that are a little bit spray and pray have a better chance, even with the inaccuracy, than if they go and play like the very standard style. I mean, can somebody who's a former Masters champion bring back the vibes and put another one up there, give themselves a chance at another chance to wear the jacket, not just as a member or guest for the Champions Dinner, but to wear it to whatever the heck they want, like Krispy Kreme in the case of Phil Mickelson when he won his third Masters. Yeah, I mean, Neiman is someone to look at. McIlroy needing this to win the Grand Slam. Can he finally do it? Matsuyama's been playing pretty well this year. Is deadly if he can get hot. He got Bruce, who's been quiet for the last little while, dealing stuff at home with his baby son. Trying to make sure everything's good with that. DJ kind of holding a quiet, DJ trying to go quietly, former Masters champion, trying to get another Masters here. Hovland, I think, in terms of players who've never won a major, I think Hovland is one of the favorites in that category. You're trying to go through here. You got the whole European Ryder Cup team essentially there. You watch out for Tony Finau. He hasn't had a great start to the year, but he always seems to do pretty well at Augusta. The great Freddie Couples, ageless wonder. Can he make a cut with the kind of field and forecasts of whether or not, somebody over 50 can go out there and compete with the young guns. If there is one that can do it, it would be Fred Couples. Wyndham Clark, the defending U.S. Open champion, can go out there and do something early. He'll probably put some stress on certain people. So we'll see. I mean, in terms of Tiger, I think making the cut is the goal. He wants to win, but how realistic is it for him to win when he hasn't played that much over the last year and a half plus? So that's that. We'll move on to the triple header at Goosageville. So that is the Truck Series race will be the first one. First race, the Speedy Cash 250 on Friday night. They have think that was, trying to go back there. Yeah, so 34 for 36. Nobody going home. Kyle Busch will be in the 7. Johnny Sauter 45. Stephen Parsons 75. Zane Smith 91. I think it's Connor Jones. In the 66 for Thor Sport. Trying to go through here, see who to pick. Josh, you went first last week, so I'm gonna go first this week in terms of the Truck Series, and my choice to win at Texas will be Rajah Caruth. I'll go and pick Rajah Caruth. He won at Vegas. This is one of the closest examples to that. Not a complete like match, but 1.5 mile racetrack, long sweeping corners. Rajah Caruth was able to save enough fuel and kind of manage the race late to go and get his first victory. So I'm going to go with Rajah Caruth. Next at Texas, Phil Rajah to win. And my wild card, I have to look at the points. That's not what I wanted. I just wanted the points, but they don't have the points there. Mentioned the Ty Majeski leading the Truck Series points so far early this season. So that's trying to go keep accumulating points over Hy Menekis. Trying to find out how many of these drivers driver standings. Yeah. There's you got Majeski, Heim. Those are all drivers that run every race there. 18, 19. Got there 19, 7 or 13. All these guys, they're the top here. 19. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Con's pulling away.
6. So right now, 25 drivers have led. 25 drivers have made all the starts, so we'll say the top 13. My wild card for this weekend will be I'll go with Chase Purdy. Or no, those are 2 Spire trucks, sorry. I'll change that and I'll go with Dean Thompson. He ran well at Texas last year and has shown some flashes at times. So it's somebody that I would think could surprise at Texas for sure. What say you, Josh, in regards to Truck Series?
I will go with KFB. Kyle Busch winning the race there. My wild card is Yeah, I'm gonna go with. There's a lot of tough picks here. I can go with Dean Thompson here in the number 5 for the Tricon Garage.
So we both picked the same wild card?
Oh wait, no, sorry. No.
Yeah.
I will go different. I will Connor Jones. I'll go Connor Jones in the
Jones. Okay.
Thor Sport.
Yeah, that's so we're going wild for sure here. Connor Jones wild card, but definitely both of us picking a Spire driver to win, but safer choice definitely on Josh's side. The Xfinity Series this weekend will be the Andes Frozen Custard 300, 38 for 38. You got Taylor Gray again in the 19. You have Daniel Dye driving the 10 for Colleague. Ryan Truex in the 20 for Gibbs. Corey Haim continues to drive the 26. D Burrito in the 38 for RSS. Chad Fincham will be driving 66 for MBM. Yeah, I'm rolling David Starr and Casey Burrito and Josh Balicki. Yep, so those guys. I go and take a moment here, Josh. What are you looking for from this Xfinity race at Texas, and your picks?
I mean, it's going to be interesting here with the 1.5-mile track on Texas. I mean, I think Cole Custer, 1.5-mile guy, he's really good. Of course, you've got Junior Motorsports of their drivers. Sam Ayers finally starting to show some results here. Allgaier is always up front here. Allmendinger, really good at this track. Of course, Sheldon Creed's been up and down, so I want to see what he's able to do, this weekend on a big oval here. Ryan Truex, he's been good when in Joe Gibbs Racing equipment. Austin Hill, always a threat on a 1.5 miles, of course. Corey Haim, once again for Sam Hunt Racing here. So yeah, really a lot of really good guys. Parker Kligerman, of course, solid pick for probably a top 10 finish. Of course, Chandler Smith, just going down here in the entry list. Chandler Smith, of course, points leader this year. Can we see him pick up another win here in the Xfinity Series? Start off the year would be really, really hot start. Of course, SVG, he's been solid so far to start his career as a oval driver. So, it's gonna be interesting here this week at Texas. Of course, SVG at this year at his races that he's done. The only real 1.5 miles, of course, Las Vegas that we had so far to start the year. Engine failure there, so you didn't really do much there. So might see how he does here this weekend. Of course, Riley Herbst, another driver here in the Xfinity Series that can be good on 1.5 miles. So yeah, a lot of good plays this week, potentially here. So yeah, I think for me, I'm just gonna go ahead and just pick Chandler Smith to win here this weekend, and I'm gonna go with SVG as a wild card here, because he hasn't really shown too much on a 1.5 mile oval. We've only seen him so far as at Las Vegas. The only real mile. I mean, I don't count Atlanta, of course, and He's run good at some other places, but want to see how he does here with especially a challenging track like Texas is, with banking being different in two different corners. That's gonna be a challenge for him, I think. So yeah, that's what I'm picking here this weekend.
I'll say that it's right on the edge there with SVG being on the wild card side, but definitely hedging and covering bases well there. On the picks for Texas, so Josh goes with Chandler Smith to win and SVG wild card. For me, I'm going to go based on I mean, there's you'd think that would be Gibbs, and if it ain't gonna be Gibbs, it's gonna be Junior Motorsports, and if it isn't gonna be them, honestly, I feel like it's gonna be a Cole Custer kind of weekend. It's a kind of racetrack that suits his driving style over the years. Him and Jonathan Toney have a habit. They know he's made his name, I think, on 1.5 mile racetracks in general. His only Cup win was at a 1.5 mile racetrack. He's been able to win in all 3 series, I think, on cookie cutter type racetracks. So definitely an Xfinity and Cup. I'm not remembering exactly off of the Truck Series, but I think Cole Custer finally gets a win in his defense of the Xfinity Series championship. In terms of a wild card, I am going to go with Sam Mayer because he's outside of the top half. So he's someone who's making the progress up, and a lot like Joey Logano, we're not going to have the opportunity to take him as a wild card very much, if at all, soon. So I'll go and take that opportunity as I have it. All right, last but not least is the Cup Series event, Auto Trader Echo Park Automotive 400. That's plenty. That is plenty to say there. So yeah, you got 35 cars. Yeah, so 18 there. 18, you can go 17. I mean, I think, yeah, I'd probably have to go top 18 there. So, Texas, it's a track that's brutal, usually a lot of yellows, people wrecking because of the different turns. Can be a fuel mileage race, could just as easily end up being carnage there. So to me, I mean, it's a good track. I think it's a good track in general for the Hendrick guys. A good track for Ryan Blaney. Won an all-star race there one time with his window net falling off. This one's a difficult one, to be fair. Really random thinking about Texas. I was gonna go, and that's what I'm probably gonna do. Go and check this out here, and find that out based on that. And yeah. So, yeah, well, the best driver's in the booth. There you go. And the second best driver is also retired. Wow, Chase Briscoe's ran at Texas 3 times. He has 1 top 5 and 2 top 10s. That's interesting how there's 2 people I was thinking of, and those are the ones that came up. And actually, this works perfectly for me. So, my pick this week to win, it's probably an upset considering how Ford has performed this year, but I'm going to go with Pizza Face Joey Logano to win. And my wild card will be that Jones boy, since we're talking about outside of the top 18 in points. Last year, late in the second race at Texas, or whatever the race at Texas, he ran really well. Cool looking car he had as well. I think Texas has been a good track over the years for Eric Jones, no matter who he's driven for, Furniture Row, Gibbs, or RPM, or now Legacy. So those are my choices. Left all the Toyotas, left all the Hendrick guys out there. I mean, the wild card is definitely more difficult based on the way the points are. You can get really deep into some cesspools here with some of these drivers, but might have to amend it to just the people in the 16. I think that would make it a little bit more difficult. You pick anybody who's in the top 16, which I did with Logano, and then after that it opens up to which would essentially, the only difference that would happen is because Suarez has won, it would open it up to where it would be Brad and everybody behind Brad. But either way, it didn't affect my picks any. Those are my choices. Josh, you get last call here on the Cup Series. So who do you see, whether it's Gibbs or Hendrick or maybe someone else?
I'm gonna go with Bubba Wallace winning this weekend. Ran second back in the fall. Probably should have won that race. Had some issue at the end, but probably should have won that one. Ran. He had good pace. Remember, he was helping Tyler Reddick get to Kyle Larson back at Las Vegas. Back last month. So he's got good pace, and 23:11 still showing good pace here at the mile and a halfs. I actually think they're a little bit better on the mile and a halfs overall than Gibbs, but of course, it's an extension of Gibbs, right? Because they're effectively still Gibbs prepared cars and everything there. So I'm going to go with Bubba winning the race, and my wild card, I'm going to go with Noah Gragson. He's had a bit of a bump in the road after his surprising start to the year earlier this year, but it's another mile and a half, and maybe he comes out here and gets a top 10 here at Texas. It's a good track for him. He's won in the past year in Xfinity Series, so could happen.
Yeah, that wouldn't be. It'd be pretty cool to see Bubba get a win again. Wasn't able to Yeah, I wasn't able to get one last year, so be cool to see him get back to victory lane and piss off segments of the fan base in the process. At one of the dumpiest racetracks that exists, at Texas Motor Speedway. All right, Josh, it's your time to let us know all things going on in the world of iRacing and gaming. So, it's sim segment time.
Well, first of all, gotta talk about the score of the game. Yukon looks like they're pulling away. Still got a little bit of time, but getting closer to winning my bracket, so it's gonna be funny. But iRacing, ran iRacing this past weekend, of course. Ran a lot of Toyota GRD6 at Motorsport Circuit. Trying to pull up the results because I'm going to butcher the name here of this racetrack. Where is it? Motorsport Orland or whatever it's called. It's a new Motorsport Arena Orland, or I don't know, some German racetrack, but ran a couple races there, ran okay. Trying to get more into the Toyota GR86 series because I really like the car. It's a fun series to run in iRacing, of course. Ran a couple of times IndyCar at Auto Club. Won, ran second. Probably could have won if I'd taken the inside line on the final lap, but I tried to stay high and try to take the outside there and hope for something, but that didn't pull through. But still got second. The other one I ran, was ran up the top 10, but got caught up. Someone in front of me spun out and couldn't avoid. So ran okay there until the very very end. So yeah, those are the ones that I ran for the most part. My other races, just mainly those. I did run one Xfinity race at Martinsville, but ran into too many people there. Wrecked a guy who was slower than me. I will argue that he was slower than me, and I was trying to just get a good bite off the turn 2, and I got him there. It wasn't intentional, but I got him, and he wrecked. And then he was like, "Oh, what the hell?" I'm like, "You're slow. What can I do?" So that's kind of how it goes sometimes. Of course, typical short track racing, but it didn't even come out of anything because I got too much front end damage where the steering was basically sideways. So I was basically holding on for dear life at the end there for Martinsville in the Xfinity car. So that was the only one that I ran there in the Xfinity series. But so I think I saw a rumor here. The iRacing, they're putting in, so they've got the Draft Master series, they've got the Ringmeister series, which is just the iRacing Nürburgring, Nordschleife circuit. I forget which car they run, but it's all the different road cars that they have now. There's a rumor that they're going to have, or I guess it's not a rumor, but they are announcing that they're going to have a Rainmaster series with the Ferrari 296 GT3 car, or GT4 car, and they're going to do a bunch of, I think it's going to be light rain, but they're going to be doing a lot of, basically a rain-only series to test drivers and stuff, so that'll be interesting to see. Looking forward to trying that out when that comes around here, so looking to do that. Maybe we'll see. Guess another event coming up, special event, the Road America 500, which I guess they're doing a endurance race on Road America in iRacing, so that might be something to look at there. Go to Reddit, iRacing Reddit, and see if there's anything there. Of course, iRacing posting on Instagram today, the iRacing blimp covering up the sun, so I guess they kind of had the eclipse today. Yeah, iRacing Rainmaster series here, looking at iRacing Twitter, new car, Rainmaster, light rain for Ferrari 296 GT3. So yeah, that's gonna be fun because I've had a lot of fun racing in the rain here on iRacing. So that's gonna be cool. So, and it might have already. I might have to like update iRacing because I guess it's already out. I saw somebody posting a screenshot of Circuit Magello with the rain series. So I might have to restart iRacing to get that update. So yeah, that's gonna be a fun race series to do. Looking at it, I might. Yeah, that's all there is. But yeah, I think this week iRacing, of course, the 87 car, North Wilkesboro this week, so might have to try that. Formula Fords at Lime Rock Park. Got, I guess, all the Cup stuff at Texas, of course. So I don't know if I'll do that. IndyCar at Nashville, a little preview of the final race of the season for IndyCar later in the year. Oh yeah, the Racing Prodigy Series. I think they had their championship on Sunday. So I guess the top 48 people got to compete, and I think the winner or whatever gets selected as like a race. Yeah, I think they get a chance to race in a real car at Road Atlanta at some point later in the year. I didn't see who won that, but that's a good challenge to get people to see who's good enough to, you know, potentially be in a real race car or something and parlay that into a potential, you know, opportunity or something like that. So yeah, that's pretty fun. Mustang Challenge at Summit Point Raceway. Got Global MX5. So yeah, Motorsport Arena Oschler's Leben. I don't know how to say that, but that's one of the circuits in Germany, I'm going to say. Nice little road circuit.
Yeah, Oschersleben is Germany.
Yeah. So it's a nice little circuit there. There's not really a ton of passing zones, but you know, there's a lot of sections there that you can carry a ton of speed. The first section is very technical, but then like once you get past that and you get to the latter half of the lap, it gets very, very much you're carrying a lot of speed onto the straight. And then the first turn, you know, you got a light braking zone, but then a sharp corner, so you brake lightly and then you have to get on the brakes hard after the first turn to make that second turn, or else you go into the grass. So that was something I had to kind of figure out, but eventually, you know, got it and everything. So, you know, that's a fun track. I had a lot of fun on that in the GR 86 car. So that's a, you know, good series to run in to kind of get a feel for GT4 type racing. You know, the Miata is another series that's good, which actually, yeah, the Miata is running in that track. So yeah, that's a good track to race in and everything. So yeah, that's all I got, you know, for iRacing, of course. But you know, of course, we'll you know, try to do something, of course, with iRacing. I think Indy 500 coming up. I think it's actually gonna be post Indy 500, the real Indy 500. So the iRacing Indy 500 is actually gonna be held the following the real Indy 500, which is a little interesting, but because it's traditionally always been like the week or two before the real Indy 500. So they had, I think at least when I've run it, the fixed Indy 500 was 2 weeks before the real 500, and then the fake, or the well, it's all fake, but the racing's real. But the open setup Indy 500 was the week before the real Indy 500. So yeah, looking forward to doing that. We're gonna have to start doing preparation, I guess, to compete in that and the setup and start figuring things out and stuff. So that should be fun. Looking forward to definitely gonna try to make the opportunity to compete in that and everything. And you know, looking at the score again for the basketball, UConn 63, Purdue 46, 5:38 left here in the second half. So gonna win. Looks like I'm gonna win this more than likely. So very, very happy about that. Finally have won a bracket in NCAA, and so I've been playing these things for 10 years almost, and I think finally winning. So this is awesome. So yeah, finally get to have a little little bit of sports. See, we talk about me being the prognosticator. Well, I call I called the national championship being Purdue and UConn and said that UConn would win. So I don't know. That's how it works sometimes. But yeah, that's awesome. So glad to participate in that and win a little prize there. So but of course the iRacing stream at my Twitter at JP Huffine, of course. The iRacing streams when I do at uSailor 2 on Twitch, and then of course our show, we got everything up there on YouTube. YouTube at Gripster Podcasts on there. So go on there and everything's up there. And yeah, that's all I got. So yeah, glad to continue a tradition like no other here on the show, of course, and maybe watch the Masters, of course, in addition to the racing. The Masters might be more entertaining to watch than Texas Motor Speedway. Maybe they should just hold the Masters. No, that would not work, but they can hold the next Master Classic at Texas, to borrow from that old Kyle Petty Darlington quote.
That's one of my favorites, and I liked it, and I think I shared it on my Insta. They ought to go and fill the place with water and fill it with bass and let them have a fishing tournament in there, and they wouldn't be able to catch anything because it's so damn hard because it's Darlington. Well, in this case, you'd be able to catch everything, and then everyone would be fighting with each other because of how shitty the the officiating is or something. But you can find me at PGMatthew28 on Twitter. You can find us at Gripster Pod on Twitter. Find the Gripster Podcast basically anywhere you listen to podcasts. Of course, the YouTube page where we have the video feeds that Josh manages and handles. We got PhilipGMatthew.com where the audio feed also goes there. So, yeah, Josh calling the tournament final, and 4:52 away, 16-point lead for UConn. Purdue running a full court press now, trying to get turnovers. And they're finally, the last time that dude was he took a full-on walk. He did a LeBron dribble there, but oh man, almost. But we will see you next week for the GSP episode 216. We'll have a Masters champion, possibly a multi-time Masters champion, maybe a first-time winner. It'd be really cool if it was Sith Tagala or Akshay Bhatia, but also be really great if Tiger pulled one out from the Wayback Machine and somehow or another brought it back old school and was able to win and tie. That's a foul. Yeah, that's a foul. And I don't know if that's a 3-pointer, but and tied Jack Nicklaus for 6 green jackets. So we'll see what happens with all that. We'll see what happens at Texas. We'll be previewing China for Formula One. IndyCar will finally, IndyCar will finally be back when we preview it, and when they'll actually start their season. The following week they're at Long Beach, and then they'll be at Baba, and then IMSA will be back with the sprint race there, and so the season will kind of kick in again and be running pretty good, humming pretty good until the Olympics in the summer. So we'll talk about all that on the GSP. We thank you all for listening and supporting, and let your friends know about it. If they like racing, like sports, we'll talk about it here. We're getting close to the draft, so probably next couple of weeks have to talk about the NFL draft. Definitely do that here on the Gripster Podcast. So Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.